thanks to my Ko-fi supporters that make these videos possible. You can also get a deck review on my weekly Tuesday and Sunday streams. It's the best way to support the channel.
Hello everyone! I'm working on a new video in my EDH Gamers Guide series of videos, specifically one about how to weave removal and protection into commander decks. And let's say it's getting pretty large, so I figured I'd cover one of the topics separately in its own video. This one, the one you're watching right now. Hello, hi! That topic being my annoyance with the dies to removal fallacy and how people use it to excuse really bad deck building options. And low-key, it quickly became a lesson about tempo and advantage and removal, so I know Trinket Mage already has a video about this, by the way, but this video is going to cover some different points from the ones that he made in his video, but it's still going to be linked in the video description below. Go watch my friend's video. All right, let's set up some stuff really quickly. Firstly, when I said bad deck building options earlier, I mean it in an entirely strategic sense. Go cast your Gigantosauruses and other big idiots to your heart's content. Casual Commander is literally defined by making the most out of subpar deck building options. In fact, I wouldn't call these options bad options at all, despite the cards not being that powerful. The only thing that separates a good card from a bad one in Casual Commander is how much fun you are having playing it. But anyway, that disclaimer out of the way, it's time to define the dies to removal fallacy and why I really hate it and what we can learn from it. Okay, first, dies to removal is a joke in the greater Magic community that basically boils down to a critique about how we criticize cards. Like, yes, plays can get removed. That shouldn't invalidate the strength of those plays, though. Take, for example, Shield with the Apocalypse. If you called this card weak because it could get Go for the Throated or Swords to Plowshares, you'd be silly. Even if she does get removed, it was a 1-for-1 exchange where you now have less removal to worry about for your future plays. The fact that she demands an answer right away or else she runs away with the game is less of a critique of the card's power and more a declaration of its strength. Sheoldred has a multitude of things going for her that makes the fallacy work in this case. Most notably, she's just one card, and a relatively cheap one at 4 mana. Cheap in the greater scheme of Casual Commander anyway. Basically every other format might disagree that 4 mana is a cheap card, but anyway. You see this come up a lot when something like Hullbreacher or Golos gets banned though. But it dies to removal, people cry out, where they don't take in the grander reason for why the card's annoying. Hullbreacher has Flash, so it can be deployed in tricky ways to make it very hard to remove because you can do it on an end step when everyone's tapped out while you hold up interaction. And with Golos, he ramps half of his commander tax, so you're only ever one land away from recasting this insane advantage engine from your command zone. Anyway, long story short, a card being able to be removed is not a valid critique of the card because most cards can be removed. To an extent. The thing with this fallacy is that a lot of people are very eager to apply it in situations where it is actually a very valid critique of a card or play pattern. This argument is not entirely a black and white thing. People miss so much nuance just because they're parroting a thing they heard online that they don't understand. So let's explore the ways in which dying to removal is actually a serious problem for a card. There's a lot of examples where I have personal experience where I've been needled by a commenter or chatter where they're just like flat out not correct for pulling out the dies to removal argument on me for saying a card would be very bad into removal. Let's say, for instance, you have a card like Lord of the Void. This is a large game-ending threat that when it hits a player, it's going to create some crushing mana and card advantage for you. There's a couple of ways to get this big moron in play, starting with the least mana efficient and tempo efficient method, casting him. Okay, so we've cast a 7-drop now. That's no easy feat. 7 is a lot of mana beyond some super extreme hyper late game scenario. Most commander decks are basically going to be tapping out to make this play work at any point before turn 10. Especially if you only run real expensive removal spells like Beast Within. So leaving 2 lands untapped doesn't really help you at all in the instant department at 9 mana. Let's keep in mind, by the way, that players are expected to start losing the game around turn 7-ish in a bracket 3 game. That's not a number I pull out of my ass either. Read the Format Panel's article on brackets. Anyway, long story short, casting this big 7-drop is a large investment and is likely to be taking up your whole turn to do so. So what happens when a 2, 3, or God forbid a 1 mana removal spell blows through and answers it? Well, the answer is severe game-losing mana disadvantage if all is at parity. You've effectively got time stop for half or 1/6 of the mana, which is just a brutal tempo hit. Okay, Elk, fine, but who's hard casting Lord of the Void? It's a big 7-drop in black. Surely you should be reanimating the thing. And great, sure, let's explore that line now. Let's say we go through the effort of running discard outlets in our deck and reanimation spells. We use our discard outlet to discard Lord of the Void, and then we reanimate it. What if it gets removed now? Surely we're in the clear. We don't have bad tempo or mana disadvantage after this line. Well, now the issue is that the card advantage is bad. Unlike hard casting the thing, you have spent 2 cards here, the Lord of the Void itself and the Reanimate, and your opponent has spent 1, the removal spell. I'm not counting the discard outlet as spending a card, by the way, because all the best discard outlets are card advantageous one way or another. But it's still super important that having a discard outlet is a hoop you have to jump through here for Reanimator, so maybe it's worth half a card. Anyway, so is Lord of the Void useless? No way. There's plenty of fun ways to make this card a key player in a commander deck. But I think you will notice a common theme among the ways that I go about doing it. Firstly, with the Reanimate line, you can use something like Bond of Revival, so you can bring the Lord back with haste. For hard casting it, a Jund ramp deck with an Arena of Glory can haste it out as well. Let's also not forget something like Sneak Attack, which can take an expensive combat damage trigger and make them happen right away. Or if you're not looking for a hasty line, you can always use some protection spells in white or counter spells in blue to keep your big dude alive long enough so that you can untap with it and allow you to hit. Sequencing and planning is a great way to answer removal. By not tapping out or preempting the big play with protective permanents like Mother of Runes, you can sandbag against a single removal spell, preventing you from falling behind after making a large investment into a card. Also, playing cards when they are most immediately useful instead of as early as you can is another great way to protect yourself from removal. Take Sneak Attack, like we mentioned earlier. By jamming this with only 4 mana available, you're left unable to activate it until your next turn, opening the door for enchantment removal to answer your very important game object and knocking you down a card. But if you played Sneak Attack with 5 or 6 mana, suddenly you get to haste in a big combat damage trigger the same turn, and maybe the Sneak Attack also gets to stick around for another turn for Mayhem and Carnage. When you play a lot of cards in a way where you can get immediate impact like this, it lessens the strength of removal against you. The cards have already gotten their value. Anything else beyond that is just gravy. The same is true for cards that replace themselves, right? If a card enters and draws a bunch of cards, or has a powerful enters ability, who cares if they remove it? It already kind of got some value. Everything we've just discussed right now, by the way, in terms of tempo and advantage, gets a lot more drastic the later you go in turn order. With less resources and less opportunity to be the one to deploy the game-winning threat first, it becomes a lot harder and harder to take over a game of Commander when you're the last to play a card party. The most important thing I have to note here is unless a play from an opponent is threatening to kill you, like a Voltron Commander, or is preventing you from playing the game, like a Stax piece like Drannith, you should probably be not using removal until you develop. Never forget that if you remove before you develop, everybody has nothing. But if you develop and then remove, you're breaking parity with removal, which of course is very key to winning with a lot of different Magic decks. Anyway, that does it for this video about dying to removal. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know if there's any advice in Magic that you take issue with. What are your favorite ways to play around removal? Let me know down in the comments below, and until next time, bye!